I never thought a single piece of plastic could make my hands shake so badly. It was a Tuesday morning, cold, quiet, unremarkable. The kind of morning where life feels painfully normal. I had woken up before the sun, like I always did, and sat on the edge of the bed staring at the pregnancy test in my hand. The little blinking hourglass on the tiny digital screen felt like it was taunting me, reminding me of all the times this moment had ended in disappointment. 5 years. 5 years of scheduled intercourse, doctor's appointments, blood tests, medication schedules, ovulation trackers, hormone injections that left bruises on my stomach. 5 years of smiling through baby showers I cried about later. 5 years of masking grief behind a hopeful voice that kept saying, maybe next month. And now, maybe, finally, this. I didn't breathe while I waited. Not really. I just sat there frozen, staring so hard at that screen my eyes stung. The silence around me felt thick and heavy, like the whole universe had stopped just to watch. And then, it appeared. Pregnant. My breath left my body in one broken, shaky exhale. I covered my mouth with both hands and tears started falling before I could even process the word. It didn't feel real. It didn't feel possible. It felt like someone had just handed me the one thing I'd been praying for every night, whispering into my pillow like a child begging for magic. I laughed. I cried. I pressed the test to my chest like it was alive. For a moment, a raw, overwhelming moment, I finally felt like life was giving something back. My husband, Marcus, wasn't home. He'd already left for work an hour earlier. He always left early now. Quarterly reports, he'd said. New boss. Bigger targets. Long hours. I never questioned it. Why would I? He was my husband, the man who held my hand through every doctor visit, who told me I wasn't broken, who sat with me on the bathroom floor after every negative test and whispered, "We'll get there, together." So that morning, I decided I wanted this reveal to be perfect. Something special. Something just ours. Something worth the 5-year wait. I got dressed, did my makeup even though my face was still blotchy from crying, and stared at myself in the mirror, touching my stomach like I could somehow already feel the life growing inside me. I looked different, softer, hopeful, alive. I drove to a little craft store and bought a tiny pair of white baby socks, a small wooden box, tissue paper, and a blank card. I stopped at a bakery we loved, a family-owned place near Town Square, and ordered his favorite chocolate croissants. The owner recognized me and teased, celebrating something. I smiled, maybe too widely, and said, "Yeah, I think I am." I wrote the card in the car because I couldn't wait until I got home. After 5 years, we finally made it. You're going to be a dad. As I tucked the pregnancy test beside the socks inside the box, my hands were still trembling, but not from fear, from joy, from relief, from the kind of happiness that feels too big to hold inside one body. I couldn't stop imagining his reaction, the stunned silence, the tears, the way he'd pull me into his arms and hold me like he used to, like nothing in the world mattered except us. He'd kiss my forehead and say what he always said when life hurt too much. "See? We're going to be okay." I rehearsed it in my head the whole drive home. The reveal, the hug, the moment our lives shifted. I wanted to surprise him. I wanted him to feel what I felt, that glowing, fragile kind of hope. When I pulled into the driveway, his car was there. Weird. He was never home this early. Maybe he'd forgotten something. Maybe he left work early. Maybe. And this one made me laugh. Maybe the universe wanted the surprise to happen sooner. I grabbed the gift box, the croissants, and walked toward the front door, heart racing in the sweetest, most excited way. I could already picture myself handing it to him, his face breaking open with disbelief and love. But before I could open the door, I heard something. A sound. A soft, rhythmic sound. I frowned and stood still, trying to place it. Then came a voice, breathy, unmistakably female. A voice I'd known my whole life. My sister's. My feet froze. My breath stopped. My brain refused to register the meaning, even though my body already understood. Another voice followed. Deeper, familiar. Marcus. A laugh. Hers. A groan. His. My stomach dropped so violently I almost doubled over. The baby box slipped from my hand and hit the ground, the lid falling open. The tiny socks rolled onto the welcome mat like a cruel joke. The truth didn't hit me like a lightning bolt. It was slower, heavier, like the world caving in piece by piece. I reached for the doorknob with a shaking hand, not because I wanted to confront them, but because some broken, desperate part of me needed to believe it wasn't what it sounded like. But when I pushed open the door, there was no misunderstanding. There was no room for hope. There was only betrayal. Raw, violent, absolute. There they were. My husband, the man I'd built a life with, and my sister, the woman I grew up sharing secrets, clothes, birthdays, and blood with. Entangled, laughing, bay skin against bay skin, like I had never existed, like our struggle, our marriage, our dreams meant nothing. And in that moment, standing there holding proof of a miracle I thought would save us, something inside me shattered so loudly I swear the whole house heard it. I don't remember screaming. I don't remember dropping the bakery bag, or the box falling completely open, or the pregnancy test sliding across the hardwood floor like it was trying to escape the moment too. But I do remember the sound of my sister's voice snapping from laughter to panic. Oh my God! Marcus turned so fast he nearly fell, scrambling for words that didn't exist. His face went pale, not with guilt, not with remorse, but with the fear of being caught. Like I was the intruder, like they were the ones whose world had just broken apart. My heart hurt so badly I wondered for a moment if I was actually dying. That sharp, crushing pressure in my chest didn't feel emotional. It felt physical, real, medical. Like I needed an ambulance, not an explanation. My voice came out small, almost childlike. Why? Just one word. A question no one in the room deserved to answer. My sister grabbed the sheets, holding them to her body as if modesty mattered now. Her cheeks were flushed, proof of everything I'd walked in on, and her hair was tangled, the same way it always got when she used to sleep in late as a teenager. Marcus didn't even bother covering himself fully. He just grabbed his boxers and stood there breathing heavily, like he was the victim. Listen, he said, running a hand through his hair. This isn't what you think. A laugh broke out of me, but it wasn't a sound meant for humor. It was disbelief. Pain. A sound dragged from somewhere deep and wounded. Really, Marcus? I whispered, blinking rapidly as tears blurred the room. You're going to start with that line. He flinched. My sister, finally spoke. It just happened. Her voice trembled in that fake, fragile way she'd always used to get out of trouble. I knew it well. She used it on our parents, teachers, boyfriends. But never in a million years did I expect her to use it with me. You don't just accidentally fall into bed with someone's husband. I snapped. My hands were shaking so hard I had to grab the wall to steady myself. Marcus stepped forward, but I stepped back instantly, the reaction instinctive, terrified, disgusted. Don't touch me, I whispered. And for the first time since I walked in, something flickered in his expression. Not guilt, but irritation. Like I was being unreasonable. Like I was embarrassing him. He sighed, loudly, rubbing his face as if he was exhausted. We haven't been okay for a long time, he finally said. The words hit harder than I expected. My legs felt weak. My voice cracked. We were trying to start a family, I whispered. We were trying to fix things. He shook his head. No, you were trying. You were obsessed. Everything became about schedules and tests and doctors. There was no intimacy, no connection. It felt like a job. My chest burned, like someone had reached inside and twisted my heart. "So you cheated?" I said, disbelief thick in my voice. "Instead of talking to me, you slept with my sister." He didn't answer. He didn't have to. Silence was confirmation. My sister finally whispered, voice breaking, "I didn't mean to hurt you." That sentence, that pathetic, empty sentence, snapped something in me. "You already did," I whispered. "You did the moment you said yes to him." My eyes dropped to the floor, to the pregnancy test lying inches from Marcus's foot. He followed my gaze. And for a second, just one single second, I thought maybe he'd feel something. Regret, shock, hope, anything. Instead, he looked conflicted, not emotional, not happy, not devastated, just uncertain. Like the pregnancy was an inconvenience, something that interrupted whatever fantasy world he and my sister had built behind my back. Slowly, painfully, I bent down and picked it up. My hands cradled it gently, the same way I imagined I'd hold my baby someday. "You should go," Marcus whispered. The words made my ears ring. My jaw trembled. Go. Like this was his home. Like I was the one who disrupted their reality. "Yeah," I said softly. "I'm going." I turned toward the door, holding the test tight against my chest. But as I stepped outside, I wasn't watching the path. I wasn't watching my feet. I wasn't watching anything, except the life falling apart behind me. Which is why I didn't see the last step, didn't feel my ankle twist, didn't brace myself in time. I fell, hard, down the cement steps. The pain shot through my body so violently that I couldn't breathe. Everything around me blurred. My hands instinctively wrapped around my stomach, protecting instinctively, desperately, before pain exploded through me. Somewhere behind me, I heard footsteps. Marcus's voice shouting my name. My sister calling 911. But everything felt distant, muffled, like I was underwater, sinking. The last thing I saw before everything went dark was the pregnancy test lying beside me on the concrete, the word pregnant still shining back at me like a cruel reminder of everything I'd just lost, or everything I was still fighting to keep. When I woke up, everything was blurry. The ceiling above me was white, painfully white, with rectangular fluorescent lights humming softly, too bright to look at directly. The air smelled sterile, sharp, like latex gloves and cleaning chemicals. A hospital. My body felt heavy, numb in some places, throbbing in others. I could feel something wrapped tightly around my left ankle, and a dull ache sat deep in my lower back, pulsing with every breath. For a moment, before memory returned, there was peace. A small, weightless silence. And then it hit. The door. The voices. My sister. Marcus. The bed. The fall. The baby. My throat tightened. Panic rising fast. My hand immediately flew to my stomach, shaky, desperate, searching for anything. Pain. Change. A sign. Almost instantly, a nurse appeared beside me, gently placing her hand on my arm. Hey, it's okay. You're safe, she said softly. Her tone was calm and soothing, the kind of voice used for people who are breaking and don't know how to piece themselves back together. I swallowed hard. "The baby," I whispered, barely able to force the words out. Is the baby?" She nodded, her eyes softening. "You're still pregnant," she said. There was some concern at first, but we did an ultrasound. The baby's okay, heartbeat is strong. The relief hit me so fast tears spilled before I could stop them. Not the slow kind, but the kind that break like a dam. I covered my mouth with both hands and sobbed, full body, uncontrollable sobbing. The kind that comes from fear and heartbreak and relief twisted together in a way that feels unbearable. The nurse didn't rush me. She just stood there, letting me fall apart. After a moment, she spoke again, still soft. "You're lucky. The fall could have gone differently." Lucky. The word felt wrong. Heavy. Ugly. Was it luck? Or just another fragile thread in a life unraveling faster than I could hold on to? When I finally caught my breath, my voice came out hoarse. "How long have I been here?" "About 6 hours. You were unconscious when they brought you in." "They." The word made my chest tighten. My heart pounded painfully. "Who brought me?" She hesitated, just long enough to make my stomach drop. "Your husband." The word cut. Husband. It didn't feel true anymore. Didn't feel earned. Didn't feel real. "Is he here?" I asked, though every cell in my body already knew the answer. "Yes," she said. "He's been pacing the hallway since you arrived. He wanted to come in, but we thought it was better to wait until you were awake and stable." I closed my eyes. Of course he was here. Because his image, the version of him he wanted to preserve, mattered more than the damage he caused. He wasn't here because he loved me. He was here because he didn't want to be the man who let his pregnant wife fall and go to the hospital alone. There's a difference. A nurse would know the truth. A marriage license would not. After a moment, she gently asked, "Do you want me to let him in?" The question wasn't medical. It was personal. It felt like a doorway, one I wasn't ready to walk through. My chest tightened. My fingers gripped the blanket. I opened my mouth. But before I could answer, there was a knock, hesitant, and then a head poked through the door. Marcus. His eyes were red, not from crying, but from not sleeping. He looked messy, nervous, unsure, but not devastated, not destroyed, not like me. The nurse looked at me, waiting for permission. I should have said no. I should have turned away. I should have protected what little of myself was left unbroken. But trauma has a habit of making you cling to the person who caused it, even when you know better. So I nodded. He stepped inside slowly, his hands shoved into his pockets like a guilty teenager, not a grown man who had detonated his marriage in broad daylight. He stopped at the foot of the bed. For a long moment, neither of us spoke. Finally, he whispered, "I'm glad you're okay." Something inside me snapped. "That's what you're going with?" I said, my voice shaking with disbelief. "That's the first thing you have to say." He looked down at the floor and exhaled. "We need to talk." "No," I said. "You need to talk. I've already heard enough." He dragged a chair over and sat beside me, elbows on his knees, hands clasped. "I never wanted you to find out that way," he murmured. I laughed, cold, broken. There was no right way to find out. Silence settled between us, heavy and suffocating. I finally asked the question eating at me. "How long?" His jaw tightened. 6 months. My stomach lurched. My vision blurred again. 6 months, I repeated. "The whole time we were doing fertility treatments." "Yes. And you let me believe we were trying together." He swallowed hard. I didn't know how to stop it. I stared at him, truly stared. And for the first time in years, I saw him clearly. Not the husband I loved. Not the man I planned forever with. Just a coward. A man who wanted comfort without responsibility, affection without effort, loyalty without offering the same. Slowly, painfully, I whispered, "I'm pregnant." His head snapped up, eyes wide. There was no joy, no excitement, just shock. Then fear, then calculation. Not once, not even for a second, did he smile. He leaned back in the chair, wiping his hand over his face. I don't know what to say." I nodded, tears slipping silently down my cheeks. "That's okay," I whispered, "because I do." I looked him straight in the eyes, the same eyes I once trusted more than anything. And for the first time since this nightmare began, My voice was steady. I'm keeping the baby. His brow furrowed. And I'm leaving you. Marcus didn't react the way I thought he would. There was no begging. No apology. No desperate attempt to save what was left of us. Just silence. A long, hollow silence that made the truth louder than any explanation could. After what felt like forever, he finally spoke, barely above a whisper. And where will you go? Not please don't go. Not we can fix this. Not I made a mistake. Just logistics. Just practicality. As if I were nothing more than a tenant giving 30 days notice. Something inside me hardened. The soft parts of me that spent 5 years nurturing dreams and protecting hope started turning to stone. My mother's, I said quietly. For now. He nodded slowly, still looking down, then leaned back in the chair like the conversation exhausted him. Maybe, he said carefully, choosing each word. Maybe we should think about all of this before making decisions. I stared at him. This is the most thought-out thing I've said in months, I replied. Maybe in years. The door opened and the nurse returned with discharge papers, a wheelchair, and a look that told me she'd heard enough to connect every missing piece. Marcus stood to help, but I shook my head sharply. No, don't touch me. The nurse paused, then subtly adjusted her stance, her body now between us like a shield. Marcus shoved his hands back into his pockets. It was becoming a nervous tick, or maybe a way to keep them from reaching for something familiar. The nurse helped me sit up and slowly eased me into the wheelchair. My ankle screamed as it touched the ground, sending sharp pain through my leg, but I clenched my jaw and stayed silent. I'd already shown enough weakness. She wheeled me out into the hallway. Marcus followed several steps behind us, not close enough to support me, but close enough to make sure others saw him present. My sister wasn't there. Of course she wasn't. People like her don't stay to face consequences. They flee and wait for someone else to clean up their mess. When we reached the exit, the cold outside air stung my face. I pulled the thin blanket tighter around me. Marcus unlocked the car, opened the passenger door and waited. For a second, I just stared at him, the ring on his finger, the man I once prayed would grow old with me, and I wondered how long I'd been loving someone who no longer existed. Maybe he never existed at all. Maybe I fell in love with a version of him I built, piece by hopeful piece, while ignoring the cracks. With a sharp breath, I allowed the nurse to help me into the car. She buckled me in like I was fragile, and for the first time, I didn't argue. Because I whispered thank you to her. She squeezed my shoulder, gentle, reassuring, and said quietly, "Take care of yourself first." It was a simple sentence, but it felt like someone had just handed me permission to breathe differently. Marcus got into the driver's seat and started the engine, the radio turning on automatically, some upbeat pop song that felt violently out of place. He reached to turn it off, but not fast enough. The silence afterward was suffocating. We drove without speaking. Houses blurred past. Street lights flickered on as evening settled in. Everything looked the same, but nothing felt familiar. Halfway home, he finally said, "You don't have to rush into anything. We can figure this out." I stared out the window. "There is nothing to figure out," I murmured. "You made your choice." "I didn't mean for this to happen," he said, voice tightening. My throat burned with the urge to scream. "But you meant it every time you did it?" I replied. "You chose it. Over and over." He didn't deny it. He didn't defend it. He just gripped the steering wheel harder. When we finally pulled into the driveway, he put the car in park, but didn't move. I did. Slowly, carefully, on one good leg. Every step toward the house felt like walking toward a battlefield of memories, birthdays celebrated, arguments whispered, holidays filled with laughter, ordinary nights eating leftover pasta while watching Netflix. All of it poisoned now. All of it rewritten. As soon as I stepped inside, my eyes landed on the box, still sitting on the floor where I dropped it earlier. The baby socks, the tissue paper, the handwritten card, the pregnancy test. A soft gasp escaped me. I bent down, ignoring the pain shooting through my ankle, and picked everything up carefully, gently, like I was gathering the broken pieces of myself too. Marcus watched quietly from the doorway. When I turned toward the hallway, toward the bedroom, toward suitcases and endings, he finally said, "Your mom's going to ask questions." "Yes," I said softly, "and she'll get answers." He flinched. For the first time, he looked afraid of consequences. Good, because he should be. I limped down the hall, grabbed 2 suitcases from the closet, and began packing. Not methodically, not thoughtfully, just what I needed. Clothes, prenatal vitamins, toothbrush, chargers, my planner, the framed ultrasound picture from 3 weeks ago, the one I stared at every night before bed. Behind me, Marcus hovered in the doorway. "I never wanted to hurt you," he said quietly. I zipped the suitcase. Then I turned to him, tears blurred my vision, but my voice didn't shake this time. "You didn't just hurt me," I whispered. "You destroyed the version of me who trusted you." His face fell, and for the first time, I think he realized what he'd truly lost. Not just a wife, not just a marriage, but the person who believed in him, the person who fought for him, the person who loved him without question. That person was gone. And the one standing here, broken, pregnant, betrayed, wasn't staying. By the time I finished packing, it was dark outside, the kind of darkness that makes the world feel quieter, heavier, more intimate in ways you don't ask for. My suitcase wheels scraped against the hardwood floor as I pulled them down the hallway. Marcus followed behind me, saying nothing now. Maybe he finally understood silence was the only language left between us. When I reached the front door, I paused. Not because I questioned my decision, but because leaving wasn't just walking out of a house. It was walking away from a life. A future I had built in my head. A family I thought I'd have. A man I believed would never betray me. I put my hand on my stomach, instinctively, protectively, and whispered inside my mind, "We're going to be okay." I hoped someday that would feel true instead of forced. Marcus opened the door for me. He didn't touch me, didn't reach for the suitcase, didn't attempt to kiss me goodbye. He stood there stiffly, shoulders tense, eyes hollow. Maybe part of him wanted to apologize. Maybe part of him expected forgiveness. But betrayal changes the rules. When I stepped outside, the cold air wrapped around me, making my skin prickle. Marcus helped me lift the suitcase into my trunk, then closed it gently. Still no words. Maybe there were none left. When I reached for the driver's door, he finally spoke, barely audible. "Are you going to tell her everything?" I paused, hand still on the door handle. "Yes," I said. "I am." His jaw tightened, and his eyes flashed with something, fear, anger, shame, maybe all of the above. My voice stayed calm. "You didn't just cheat on me," I said softly. "You stole something sacred, from both of us." He nodded once, looking away. Then, almost mechanically, he stepped back from the driveway. I got into the car, adjusted the seat carefully around my injured ankle, and stared straight ahead. For a long moment, neither of us moved. Then I turned the key. As the engine started, Marcus took a step forward like he wanted to say one more thing, something important, something final. But he didn't. He just watched me drive away. I kept my eyes on the road until the house disappeared from the mirror. Only then did I let myself cry, quietly, without collapsing. Tears rolled steadily down my cheeks as streetlights flickered past and houses blurred together. My phone lit up in the cup holder, messages from Marcus, and one from a name I never wanted to see right now. Hannah, my sister. I didn't open it. I turned the phone face down. Some betrayals do not deserve processing. The drive to my mom's felt longer than usual. I rehearsed what I would say, how I would tell her, how I could possibly breathe through the humiliation of admitting that my husband and sister were now something I couldn't unsee or unknow. When I finally turned onto her street, the porch light was on. She always left it on for me, even when I didn't need it. I parked, took one deep breath, and reached for the door handle. My mom must have heard the car because before I could even knock, the door swung open. She stood there in her robe, hair tied up loosely, face puzzled and tired. Until she saw me. Then everything in her expression shifted. Not because she knew what happened. She didn't. But because mothers know when their children are breaking. "Oh, sweetheart," she whispered, her voice cracking. I didn't speak. I just stepped forward. And she wrapped her arms around me instantly, tightly, without asking questions or giving advice or trying to fix anything. Just held me. And for the first time since everything shattered, I finally let myself collapse into someone's arms without fear of being replaced. She helped me inside and closed the door behind us. We sat on the couch, and she tucked a blanket around my legs before sitting beside me, close enough that our shoulders touched. Only then did she ask softly, "Tell me everything." And I did. Not all at once, not perfectly, not without breaking down, but piece by piece, between sobs and breaths and shakes that I couldn't control. I told her about the test, the box, the voices, the bed, the fall, the hospital, the decision. By the end, I couldn't breathe through how much it hurt. My mom held my hand. "No one deserves that," she whispered. "Especially not you." I wiped my face, exhausted. "What do I do now?" I asked. She looked at me with a steady, grounded honesty I needed more than anything. "You heal," she said. "You protect your baby. And you learn to live again, one day, 1 hour, one breath at a time." I nodded, slowly, not because I knew how, but because I wanted to try. Later, after she helped me settle into the guest room, after I changed into borrowed pajamas and curled against the pillows, I stared at the ceiling in the dark. My phone buzzed again. Marcus. Then Hannah. Then Marcus again. I turned the screen off completely and placed it face down on the nightstand. For once, their access to me was over. My hand drifted to my stomach again, and with a voice barely louder than a breath, I whispered, "We're starting over." It hurt. Good, it hurt. But underneath the pain, small and quiet but real, there was something else. Not hope. Not yet. But the possibility of it. The days after the truth surfaced did not feel real. They felt like an unfinished sentence, one that hung in the air long after the voice stopped speaking. I existed, but I wasn't living. I moved through hours with a numbness that didn't quite hurt, yet didn't protect me either. It was a strange kind of suffering, quiet, persistent, unexplainable. People outside smiled at me like the world was unchanged. Birds still sang. Cars still honked. The sun still rose like it had no idea it was shining on the ruins of someone's trust. But inside me, everything was collapsed. My mind replayed every word, every kiss, every late-night conversation as if studying a crime scene. And in a way, I guess I was, because betrayal isn't just an action. It's a theft. It steals the version of reality you believed in. It steals the version of yourself you trusted. I stopped talking to him, at first because I couldn't, and later because I refused. His messages came slowly at first. "Please, let's talk." Then, "You don't understand. Let me explain." Then the desperate ones. "I'm sorry. I didn't want to hurt you." Then finally, the ones that felt like knives. "If you walk away, you're throwing everything we had away." I remember staring at that last one for a long time, and I realized something. I wasn't the one who threw anything away. He did, quietly, repeatedly, intentionally, every time he chose to lie instead of speak truth. I didn't block him. Not yet. Not because I wanted him in my life, but because I wanted my silence to be the loudest answer I had ever given. Sometimes silence hurts more than anger. Sometimes silence is the only language betrayal understands. Healing didn't start immediately. It came in small, strange moments. Like when I laughed unexpectedly at something on TV, and then froze, shocked that laughter could still exist inside me. Or when I slept through the night without waking up with a tightness in my chest. Or when I walked outside and felt air touch my skin without the weight of memory dragging behind it. I started writing, not about him, but about myself. About who I was before love demanded pieces of me. About the version of me that existed long before he entered my story. And slowly, quietly, almost like a whisper, I began returning to myself. But healing isn't a straight road. It's a maze. Some nights, the memories hit harder than any confrontation ever could. Like the night I opened a drawer and found the letter he wrote me months before. His handwriting looked different now. Not romantic, not poetic, just artificial. It was strange how words that once made my heart race now made it tighten. I didn't tear the letter. I folded it. Placed it back. Not because I wanted it, but because destroying it felt like admitting the entire love was worthless. And I refused to believe that. Not because he deserved grace, but because I deserved peace. There is a difference. Time passed. The messages stopped. The calls stopped. The weight began to shift. Not disappear, but move to a place I could carry without collapsing. I woke up one morning, and something was different. Not louder, not brighter, not dramatic, just different. My first thought wasn't him. It was me. What I wanted, what I needed, what I deserved. And that realization felt like breathing after holding my breath underwater for too long. That day, I finally blocked him. Not out of rage, not out of sadness, but because the chapter had nothing left to give. Closure didn't come from his apology. It came from my acceptance. I didn't need answers anymore. I didn't need explanations. I didn't need him. All I needed was the truth I finally understood. Some people don't break you because you're weak. They break you because they never knew what to do with something real. And now I was learning how to exist without shrinking myself for someone else's comfort. And even though part of my heart still ached, part of it was waking up. Slowly, tenderly, honestly. Healing didn't sound like triumph. It sounded like a quiet sentence whispered inside myself. I deserved more than what happened to me. And for the first time, I believed it. Time has a way of softening even the sharpest wounds. Not because the past becomes less painful, but because you become stronger than what happened to you. Weeks turn to months, and somewhere along the way, the heaviness inside me loosened. The grief didn't vanish, it simply learned where it belonged. It no longer controlled my days. It lived quietly in the cracks of memory, no longer powerful, no longer loud. I didn't wake up one morning suddenly healed. Instead, healing happened in pieces, small victories disguised as ordinary moments. The first time I heard his name and didn't feel my chest tighten, I realized a shift had happened. The first time someone asked about him and I answered with clarity instead of emotion, I felt my heart straighten its own spine. The first time I looked in the mirror and saw myself, not the version who was left, or lied to, or betrayed, but simply me, I understood. I was no longer broken, not patched, not recovering, not surviving, but reborn. One afternoon, I found myself walking near the place where everything had started, where laughter felt endless, where promises felt permanent, where love once felt unshakable. I stopped for a moment, not because I missed him, but because I wanted to honor who I used to be. The version of me who loved without hesitation, who trusted without question, who believed love meant loyalty, not convenience. I didn't resent that version of myself anymore. She wasn't naive. She wasn't foolish. She wasn't weak. She was brave. Because loving is brave. Choosing someone is brave. Opening your heart and hoping someone protects it. That is courage disguised as softness. And just because someone failed to value that softness doesn't make it a flaw. It makes it rare. There came a day when I finally understood something vital. Closure is not something another person gives you. Closure is something you give yourself. It's not an apology, not a conversation, not an explanation, not a dramatic ending with all the answers laid out neatly. Closure is waking up and realizing, this no longer deserves space in my spirit. And letting go, not to erase the past, but to protect the future. I began rebuilding my life, not from the rubble of what was lost, but from the pieces of myself I rediscovered. I laughed louder. I traveled further. I listened to songs I once avoided. I took up space again. In rooms, in conversations, in my own thoughts. The world no longer felt heavy. It felt possible. Love no longer frightened me. It simply felt like something that would come when it was meant to, not rushed, not forced, not performed. And one evening, quiet, ordinary, unremarkable, I realized I wasn't waiting anymore. Not for him. Not for answers. Not for what could have been. I was living. Fully. Present. Whole. Healing didn't erase what happened. It transformed it. The betrayal no longer defined me. The heartbreak no longer controlled me. The pain no longer dictated my worth. Instead, it became a lesson. One written in scars, but understood in strength. It taught me, not everyone who touches your heart deserves a place in it. Love should never require abandoning yourself. Trust is sacred, and not everyone earns it. Losing someone is sometimes just finding your freedom. And most importantly, the person you become after breaking is often far more powerful than the one you were before. Sometimes I think about him, not with longing, not with anger, but with distance. He is a chapter, not the whole book. A moment, not a lifetime. A lesson, not a destiny. And in the quiet of my healing, I whispered something, not to him, but for myself. Thank you for leaving. Because if he hadn't shattered what we had, I would never have discovered the strength waiting beneath the fragments. I would never have learned how deeply I could grow, how clearly I could see, how fully I could reclaim myself. Now, when I love again, and I will, it will not come from longing or fear or hunger. It will come from wholeness, from a place where I no longer chase love. I choose it. Where I no longer beg for honesty. I expect it. Where I no longer dim who I am. I radiate fully. Because heartbreak may have changed me, but it did not end me. It refined me, strengthened me, rebuilt me into someone softer in the right places, stronger in the necessary ones, and wiser everywhere in between. So here I stand, not broken, not bitter, not waiting, but becoming. And if the world ever asks what I learned from loving someone who didn't know how to stay, my answer will be simple. I learned that I can survive losing someone else, and I can survive finding myself. And with that truth settled deep in my bones, I take my next breath, steady, sure, unafraid. Because the story doesn't end with who left. The story continues with who I became. And even after everything, even after the pain, the silence, the unraveling, I rise. Not quietly, not halfway, not in fragments, but fully, unapologetically, and beautifully.